Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Am I? Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amy Vang. What? Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amy Vang, and I'm a program coordinator for the Health Education Council. The Health Education Council is a nonprofit based in West Sacramento, serving the greater Sacramento region. Our mission is to cultivate health and well-being in underserved communities by leveraging the power of collaboration. The Health Education Council team welcomes you to our first annual Sacramento School Wellness Summit. This summit is funded by USDA, SNAP, an equal opportunity provider and employer. Thank you for joining us for our session on Restart Smart, practical physical education in the COVID era. For those of you joining us today for the live Q&A, we will have the opportunity to further discuss the topics from this session with our expert. Please refer to the Whova chat section on the right of your screen and type in your questions for the speaker. I will be reading these questions out to the speaker and she will be answering them. We also encourage you to add questions as they come up. Now, I would like to introduce our session speaker, Shana Green from Catch Global Foundation. Shana is the Catch Implementation Manager for the Catch Global Foundation. She assists school districts and after-school programs with the implementation of the Catch curriculum and philosophies. Before joining the Catch team, Shana was a coach, physical education teacher, and later a physical education coordinator for Del Valley Independent School District. As a Catch champion, Shana helped to transform the entire district into a model of healthy behaviors, events, and practices. Shana is recognized as an excellent Catch PE implementation trainer because of her knowledge and experience gained from working in after-school programs, all grade levels of public school, and providing training around the nation.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. I've enjoyed the session or the conference very much. Any questions?
Thank you, Shana, for being here and being one of our guest speakers. I'm positive many found the video beneficial since most students are doing virtual learning. Mm-hmm. It's important to integrate small activities throughout distance learning to get the body moving. One question that I have for you is, Shana, can you please elaborate more about the MVP framework? How does that framework tie into the whole school, whole community, and whole child model?
Sure. So with Catch, we have several different components to it. The number one thing about Catch is called our coordination kit, because we really feel that in order to help our children be healthy, we really need to have healthy environments for them. And so by using our coordination kit and really teaching our admin to work with our classroom teachers, to work with our cafeteria staff, that's how we kind of develop that idea of that healthy school coordination. It works well with the whole child because there's also a piece where we have like a family fun night. In some cases, some schools have multiple family fun events throughout the school year. And so it really brings in the community, the parents, as well as everyone on the staff with that focus of health and wellness on our children or with our children.
Thank you, Shana. The next question that I have for you is, how can we motivate kids to be active on Zoom when they don't want to be, especially adolescents who want their own autonomy?
Yes, that can be really difficult. The one thing I have to say is that even as adults, the more we sit, you'll notice that the more we want to sit, like our bodies want to So even if we were in a live training, you know, after we take a little break and then I say, okay, guys, everybody get up, we're going to do an activity break. All of a sudden you'll hear everybody kind of like moaning like, oh, I don't want to. And so that's kind of what's happening with our youth right now, because they're sitting all day long, that it's kind of like they're forgetting that they want to be active and they want to move. But the sooner you are, when you are able to get them up, it's like, oh yeah, this actually feels really good. So just a couple of things. One is just providing as much variety as possible. When you really change it up, sometimes you can get more buy-in, because all of a sudden, if you're doing something that involves, you know, music and rhythm, then the kids are like, okay, I'll do this, or, you know, try to relate to what they're doing. So a lot of them are doing those silly, you know, TikTok videos. So find an appropriate song and like have the class come up with something and record it. So really just trying to kind of speak their language. Also, positive reinforcement goes a long way. So really highlighting the students who are showing up and are doing great things. And then also giving them choice. So allowing them to come up with, you know, some of the activities that you do, allowing them to lead, also allowing that connection to happen. So in their academic classes, it might be, you know, go, go, go the whole time. So maybe just saying something like, hey guys, if we get up and we do this quick activity burst, then, you know, we can talk about this subject, or you could put them in breakout rooms and let them just kind of have that time to connect with one another. So there's really not a perfect solution to that. It's just trying it all, you know, just give everything a shot and see what happens. And that's kind of where we are on that. And then also I would really try to hit on everything. Like we've heard so much in this conference about the SEL and self-care and all of those things. Like I would really incorporate that into your physical activity session as well. So the mindfulness, the breathing techniques, even if you were on the call yesterday, she did like this wellness wheel, like doing a wellness wheel together. So doing some kind of activity like that, and then jumping up and getting a little bit of physical activity, and then going back to, you know, creating something that can be helpful too. Because once they start doing those little bouts of activity, then maybe you can get that amount of time to happen for longer periods of time, to where they'll actually get up and move with you throughout the whole class period.
Okay, so it seems like the main message is, you know, to always get the kids interacting so that their body is constantly moving.
Yeah, that definitely helps. Just get them moving as much as you can, and also just celebrate those little wins. You know, if you can get them up and do, even, you know, if you're doing like a quiz and you did some health lesson. So let's say we're really struggling getting them up and moving. So instead, do some kind of health lesson and lead a PowerPoint, but in the middle of the PowerPoint, do maybe a question and answer. If the answer is true, everybody stand up. If the answer is false, everybody sit down. And so something like that, where they're just getting that little bit of movement, can kind of trigger them to do more. There's another activity break that we do where they spell their name. And so it's real simple. They're sitting down, and if it's a consonant, they just twist. And then for vowels, they stand up. So giving them those activities that they're not going to embarrass themselves. It's really easy. A couple of those lead up activities might get you to move into a full session. And then when you do have a full activity session, then really trying to keep those short bouts of activity and just change it up. So first we're going to start off with this dance, and then we're going to do some kind of skill, or we're going to do a game, or we're going to play rock, paper, scissors, and then we're going to do a mindfulness, so that there's so much variety and we're moving so quickly that you might be able to get more buy-in that way too.
Thank you, Shana.
And I do have to say too, you know, this is just a tough situation for all of us. I'm on both sides. So I'm the parent with the kids in front of the screen, and I know how hard it is to even keep their attention. And then the flip side of that, being the teacher and just trying to pull everybody in. So I know that it's difficult. And so as long as you're just trying something new each time and really reaching out to the kids, you're doing a good job. You know, there's only so much we can do.
Thank you, Shana. I agree. There's so much. There's only so much that we could do given, you know, the circumstances that we are in. Mm-hmm. Roxana, the next question is from Roxana. She wants to know, what are some ideas or steps that needs to be taken in order to replicate this model in other districts or school?
Yeah. So a couple of things we do. Our big focus is putting a team together. So whenever we go into a school and we start working with them on creating this like whole child idea, the very first thing we do is we tell them to get a team. And they can start small. So we talk about you and a buddy. So, you know, 2 to 3 people get together with this passion of, we really want to see health and wellness be the front end of, or the movement that's happening within the school, part of the campus culture. And so they can start to just plan little events. The way Catch works, we actually follow a full school year. And so every grading period has a theme. And then within every theme, you have these tasks that everyone does. So just an example of that is at the beginning of the year. And also I should say too, that those themes very naturally follow a school year so that you're not putting too much on your teachers. So at the beginning of the year, it's all about setting up your team, getting everyone ready. And then you have a kickoff week. And then a little bit after that, it's all about the language of Catch. And you don't have to have Catch necessarily. It's just the language of health for your school. And then after that, that's where we're right around like the holidays. Then we have this family unit. And so we start reaching out and taking that message home, and we have some kind of family fun night, which we also have virtual fun nights that we're preparing for, so that if we just stay in this pattern this year, we can still have these coordinated efforts. And then at the end of the year, you celebrate your successes. And so then within each of those, you have these tasks. So the beginning of the year, I mentioned this kickoff week. So during the kickoff week, they're very simple tasks. You want your principal to read morning announcements over the intercom, so everyone knows, okay, the principal is on board. You want your parent leaders to, talk about health and wellness at PTO, PTA, how can they help, all of those kind of things. They're sending letters home to the parents, hey, just letting you know we're a healthy school, we're a whole child focused. And then you have your PE teachers who are teaching like nutritional games, we call them go slow will games, in the gym, so they're hearing that messaging there. And then the rest of the staff, we have these things called your healthy commitment. And so everybody in the school is writing down their healthy commitment. And we have those posted in the classroom or in the hallway, but all of a sudden it's very visual that, hey, this is something that we really value. This is something that we do. And so the year kind of progresses that way. So you want your team to meet every grading period. And then at that grading period, if you were to use the Catch curriculum, it's all laid out. But if not, then you would just get together as a group and you would decide what your theme, what's your focus going to be, and then how can everyone contribute to that. And so you do that with your small team. And then after that, you get the message out to everyone. Okay, this is where I'm telling everybody at the faculty meeting, okay, we're all going to work together. We're going to start this theme, and maybe right now with it being all in a virtual setting, our theme could be more activity during your Zoom calls. And so everyone's trying to get more activity in the Zoom calls. So the classroom teachers, as well as PE, as well as maybe your principal is sending out messages to parents. Hey, we're going to be really active this week. Let's get everybody up and moving during their classes. So when they're getting that message from all of these key people, then that's when we start to see those healthy changes, because our environment is what determines our behavior. So if the full environment is really focused on health and wellness, then all of a sudden you'll see that behavior start to change as well.
The next question is from Rebecca. She wants to know if you can please elaborate on how to better equip parents to lead any kind of physical activity at home if they may not have a lot of experience themselves.
Yes, we can. So we created a resource called Catch Health at Home, and it's completely free. And there's a parent classroom section of that. So if you were to go to Catch Health at Home, and actually I can put it in the chat even, that link, or actually I'll just share my screen and show you. Okay, so here. Okay, does everybody see the Health at Home screen? Amy, you see that?
Yes, I'm able to see it.
Okay. So if you go to this Catch Health at Home page, all of these resources are free and available to you. But if you go to this one that you're a parent, it will take you to our Google Classroom. And so in the Google Classroom, and if I go through that way, it's going to take me a little while to get there. So let me actually stop sharing and I'll kind of talk you through it as I'm pulling it up. But in the Google Classroom, there's lots of resources for you as the parent. So there's nutrition tips, there's recipes that you can do, and there's even a section that truly is called tips, and it's for parents teaching physical activity at home. There's also a lot of fun games that you can do with 1 to 2 people or really small groups, because we understand that everybody's at home with their family right now. And so we wanted to make that as easy as possible for everyone. Let me actually pull that up and I'll share it as well. Okay. All right, so here, oh, sorry, my little bar keeps dropping down. Okay, right there. No, I don't want that. Okay, so if you go to Catch Health at Home, this is only for parents. So there's 3 different platforms that you can go to. There's an educator platform, there's an out-of-school staff platform, and so it's very focused on that time that you're with your kids. So the home one is all about parents being home with their families. And so here, if you go to classwork, you have all of the resources available. And so when I was mentioning tips, we actually call them parent tips. And it goes through just some different tips that you can use at home, like replacement list. If they don't have certain equipment, what can they use instead? Tips on how to talk, teach, and train your students, how to inspect the area, make sure it's safe, how to prepare, praise, and prompt. So it just is kind of a little brief intro on, how to teach those activity sessions. There's also 1 to 2 people games. So if you wanted to do some fun games with your family, these lessons are here as well. And some of them have videos. So there's several of them actually that have these little videos that you can follow along. And then my new favorite section, because my new favorite thing right now is mindfulness. I think it's so important. And so there's a whole section on just being mindful, just being present, also helping kids with healthy habits, so getting their sleep, writing gratitude lists. This is one of my favorite resources we have. So just coming up with, their gratitude list, taking a walk, like a mindful walk, that's available as well. There's a list too of just fun family activities that you can do, and all these are kind of in that mindfulness realm, or not so much mindfulness, but just being very present and with your friend, your family. And there's one more too. Oh, setting a daily intention. So that can be really nice to do with your family as well before you start the day. So that resource, like I said, completely for parents, and we interact on here as well. So sometimes we'll ask parents, hey, what are your tips for, healthy foods? And we'll get a couple of answers back, and it kind of allows parents to have that community where they're talking back and forth about things that they're doing to create a healthy home. And that is at Catch Health at Home. If you just Google that, you don't have to have the exact line. If you just Google it, it'll come up. All right.
Thank you, Shana, for sharing the resources. Another question that came up is from April. She wants to know, what can I do to help motivate my high schooler? PE is self-paced and motivated at his school, and he just isn't getting the exercise he used to when he was on campus.
Yeah. I think that's so hard. Once they hit high school, it's really about ownership, and it is. It's ownership, and it's also those lifelong activities. So we have to understand that by the time they get to high school, they've really kind of determined what activities they want to do and what activities they don't. And so really leaning in on, individual things that he can do. Maybe if it's something like Frisbee golf that you have in the neighborhood, or if it's getting some weights out in the garage and letting him go out and lift weights, or just having that place to do those things. Trying to find workout videos that he can follow, because it really has a lot to do with just, again, that just self, what joy doing, and kind of leaning into that. And really, there's not much that the PE teacher can do to get him more involved. At that point, it's kind of like, well, the grades don't really motivate them as well. They really have to want to do that activity. I'm trying to think of what else. Trying to put them in other communities of people that are doing those things. So if you could find, maybe there's karate classes. A lot of places have gone virtual now. So finding a group of kids his age, like a community his age, that are participating in some type of physical activity could be really helpful. And then, he might not want to do it all right at first. He might be shy, embarrassed. There's so many things that pull us away from just putting ourselves out there, especially in a physical sense. But I think if you tried a couple of them and it was just like, this is what you're going to do, you're just going to give it a shot, maybe you could find something that he, will grasp onto. And then also note too that, I remember so distinctly being in high school, and health and wellness just wasn't my my thing. You know, they have so many other things that takes their attention in high school, but it is a really important time to plant seeds and knowledge, because once they get a little bit past high school and they really see the need of being physically active because of their health, then all of a sudden they can lean back into what they learned, you know, high school, middle school, and try to bring those healthy habits back in. So I would say, you know, even if it's just getting the knowledge in, like actually doing nutrition lessons, those kind of things. If you're cooking healthy foods at home and have him do it with you, have him make the meal one night, I think those little, like, planting those seeds will add up in the long run. So, you know, keep at it, because it's important. Let them know too how much you appreciate health and wellness. Maybe model some of those things too, and just know that it might come back to them in the long run. Because it wasn't until I got in college and I was like, oh, maybe I should start taking care of my health. Maybe I'd feel a little bit better and be able to study more. So yeah, maybe he'll come around. But hopefully that gave you some ideas. I'm sorry. Good.
April wants to say thank you. She appreciates the advice that you've given her.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a high school PE teacher for several years, so I completely understand. And you have some kids that are very motivated by it, and you have some that are really, you know, turned off by it. And maybe they've had experiences that got them there. But again, I really think it just depends on that knowledge base, and then finding that right community and that right activity. You know, if you think about it, all of us, we have like certain activities that we really, really enjoy. And then we have others that we don't, and maybe we feel very unskilled at it. And so when we're put in a situation where we have to do it in front of others, it kind of makes us like shut down. So helping him find that, that thing that like motivates him and gets him where he wants to move, that's going to be key.
The next question is from Rebecca. She wants to know if you can please share any distance learning successes.
Yes, I can. So yesterday we were on a call with a bunch of PE teachers, and they were honestly telling it like it was. They were giving us all the things, of the hard, difficult things that they were doing. Some of them are teaching virtually, but then they also have a live class. And so we really kind of, as a group, talked through like what you could do in that situation. And so in that situation, you know, I know you're all virtual right now with California, but when we start going back, you might end up that way. There is a key of like having a buddy, like a virtual buddy. So you have the student that's going to help you virtually engage with those students that are like online, as opposed to in the class with you. But since you guys are strictly virtual, I'll focus on virtual. So one of the things that you can do is to provide some kind of slide at the beginning. So as kids are coming on, there's music playing, and you've got a slide listed with all the key things that you're going to go over, so that it's a very easy it's an easy Zoom call to jump into, because you know that like right at the beginning when people are coming in and it just kind of makes you feel a little awkward, like create a fun environment for them to come into right off the bat. And so that has been very successful. A couple of other things are, again, just, I can't say enough to give them short bouts of activity or learning. The more that you can change it up, the better, because they're just going to keep their focus more. Also, if you have the capabilities to pull them into breakouts and to do polls, and you know, all of that stuff will keep them engaged. If you're just kind of talking quite a bit, then we will lose focus. They'll start doing other things on their computer, and you can't really tell that they're not with you. But if you put them in a breakout room and they don't join that breakout room, then all of a sudden you know that they're not there. So finding those ways definitely keeps them a lot more engaged and interactive. And then also, as you're teaching on Zoom and you get more comfortable, like just making it a very just kind of casual, fun environment can also be really good. Again, providing them those times to connect with one another, doing the breakout rooms. And when I say connect, it doesn't necessarily have to be times where they're just talking, but put them in a room and let them work on a project together. Then bring them all back and let them present. You know, those kind of things where, because that's what I feel like they're missing, are those like project-based learning, and they're really getting to do some fun things and be more visible. And we can do that with physical activity too, where they're going out, they're coming up with the activity, and then they're coming back and they're each having a turn to lead everyone else. Yeah, I think that's some of it that we kind of came up with. There's some teachers too that are teaching, you know, an hour and a half at one time, or just an hour. And if you think about it like, okay, I have to entertain, or not entertain, but teach my students for an hour, that can feel very overwhelming. But if you keep those little short ideas like, okay, I just need to do this warm-up activity, and then I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to finish with an exit ticket, then it can make, one, it'll give you the creativity you need to pull all of those resources that you're going to want to use. And then also it will just keep your kids on their toes so that they're more engaged throughout the lesson.
Thank you, Shana. It seems that, yeah, with the Zoom platform that everyone's using, it's really important to have breakout rooms so that participants can engage and have that close discussion with their peers. And one of the questions that I have for you is, how can we adapt the re-entry task and re-entry zone for students who have special needs on a virtual platform?
Sure. So what we could do is have a list. So instead of it being, you know, this is what you're going to go do, I would have a list, and I would make sure that that list is available for everyone. So it's not just like this one student has this list, everyone does. And so on the list, you can have a list of activities that they're choosing from, and it doesn't have to be always exercise. You could have them, you know, go over and they're dancing. They have to go over, they have to draw go food and bring it back to you. Go foods are those healthy foods that you eat all the time, and then slow foods every once in a while, and then those whoa foods are those highly processed foods. So pulling in that like nutrition piece where they're, you know, engaging with nutrition. So I think just giving them that variety will make sure that everyone feels included, and it gives everyone that just choice and being able to make their own decisions. So that could be helpful.
Thank you, Shana. Next question that I have is, how can we ensure that students are involved in MVPA for 50% of the class time in a virtual setting?
That is a really hard one. And, you know, that is definitely one of the catch objectives. I would say that right now, again, that's kind of going into that grace bucket of you've got to give yourself grace, give them the opportunity to be active, give them lots of time to do it, try to be very motivating when they do it, call them out, you know, spotlight students. But really when it comes down to it, we just have to do the absolute best we can. And then also I would say, just to constantly remind them to do it on their own. Get outside, you know, whatever your school mascot is. My children are the Mustangs. So like, remember Mustang movers, that every day we get outside and we get some physical activity. So having that where you're always asking them to get out and move, that could be helpful. Having that be like one of the things that they talk about right when you join again. So the next time you see it, you're like, hey, what all did you do? Let everybody kind of share the activity that they did while they were at home. So just really encouraging them to do it all the time, allowing that, giving them those choices, giving them the space to do it, like all those things are going to be important on that MVPA. And I think where we kind of get that from is in a traditional PE class. So I taught for 1 year at a middle school before I was part of this Catch grant that really kind of changed my world. And during that time, you know, there's this like downtime where kids are kind of sitting as they're waiting for other kids to come out of the locker room. And then there's also that downtime where the teacher is talking, and so they're waiting. And then there's like transitions when you're moving from your warm up to your activity. And so Catch has this tool called SoFit, and it's something that anybody can do. But SoFit, you can find it on YouTube, and it's this way of evaluating the percentage of MVPA in a class. And so they came and did that test on us, and when they did, we were so horrified to find out that our kids were only active like 20% of the class time. And we were losing them on those transitions. We were talking a lot as we were really passionate. So we'd start talking about the activity, and we would just talk it too much. We didn't have very clear ways of them getting equipment. And so there was just a lot of waiting. So there was a lot of things that Catch taught me, like that idea of hitting the track, having them come in and they're moving, having them, whenever you need to get in partners, having them get toe to toe with a partner. I need all the, you know, I never say 1 and 2 because nobody wants to be number 2, but you could say like a strawberry and a kiwi. Who's going to be a strawberry? Who's going to be a kiwi? And then you could split the whole class in half, and you have, you know, these kids that go get the equipment. So all of these little management techniques will eliminate the downtime. And that's when we can start seeing really high MVPA. So in the end, we were actually active. I think we made it to like 83% of the time we had high MVPA during the PE class. So where that objective comes from is that idea of let's not have kids stand around and wait, you know, let's make sure that we're having very active transitions. And so we would just want to think about that too. If we're in Zoom and we're going from, you know, our one activity to the other, we could have them march in place. We could have a music on that they're dancing to while we're transitioning to the next thing. So just trying to keep them up and moving the whole time. And I'm actually at a stand-up desk, so even modeling that all the time where they have the freedom to move around while they're in class can be really, really helpful too.
Thank you, Shana. The next question is from Sal. He wants to know if you could, if this model, if it's a one-size-fits-all approaches for all ages, or does the approach differ across different age groups?
That is a great question. So there's aspects of the program that span across all. Those things would be creating a team, you know, that team that's on campus that's driving the force, having everyone have their task. All of that is really helpful. Also, those objectives in PE, those are across the board. We want kids all across the board to find some kind of enjoyment. We want them all to have opportunity to practice. We want all of them to have MVPA for 50% of the time. What changes is what you put into that framework. So at our elementary level, we have like these heart healthy superheroes, and they kind of lead the effort, and they're on our posters. And so it's all about these kind of superheroes that lead the way. And then in the middle school, we really focus more on it being about the students. And so it's more about like them writing goals and creating goal setting and having the opportunity to write their own posters. And we do like a big Go Slow Whoa thing in the cafeteria where we put up colored paper, and then they bring their food and put it in. So it's a little bit more focused on the students leading themselves and leading one another than it is with elementary. We don't at the time have a high school curriculum, but I did take my middle school curriculum to the high school when I went there too. And I would say a lot of the things remain the same. We want to make sure that we have variety. We want to focus on lifetime skills. You know, by the time they get into the high school, they've either determined that they're going to play sports and that's the route they're going to go, or they're going to go to PE. And if they're coming to PE to you want to find that lifetime activity that they're going to enjoy. So giving them lots of opportunities to see all the different ways that they can move is going to be key. But then also having that voice is super important. So they would still be the ones, you know, making the posters. They would be the ones putting together their own workouts, tracking how they're doing it. So the framework still stays. For coordinated school health, for whole child health, you always want to have a team that's working together. You want to make sure that team has a variety of representatives. You want to make sure that they're meeting on a regular basis and that they have a plan that they're moving forward with each 6 weeks. And I just say that because sometimes we try to start too big at the beginning. You know, we get something and we're like, okay, we're going to do this. And we try to do too much. And then there's burnout at the end. We get to that testing, you know, the end of school. And so it burns out. So it's really important to keep it simple throughout the whole year so that everyone can be a part of it. And then just making sure that you have something that's very easy and doable for everyone so that it's just a constant message that eventually becomes the culture of the school. So some of the changes that we saw at our campus with just whole child work is all of a sudden our teachers were really healthy. And that was a huge thing that we noticed because, you know, as teachers, we're tired. We're tired, we're not getting enough sleep, we're not eating well because we're eating on the run, we're eating in our car, we're drinking soda to get through the day, you know, all those kind of habits that we pick up. And so when we really started talking about eating healthy and the Go Slow Whoa foods, all of a sudden the students were calling the teachers out. Like you couldn't have a whoa food in your classroom. So they were starting to eat healthier. And then we started doing a lot of teacher events. So we would have like a workout class after school, which really is something you could do on Zoom too. You guys, like after a faculty meeting, you can stay on for 5 minutes and lead some kind of physical activity, or you could demonstrate activity breaks throughout those, Zoom faculty meetings. Another thing that we could do right now for our teachers is have a teacher self-care challenge. So we have a list of self-care items that they could do, coloring, listening to music, declutter your space. We have all these things that they could do. So what you could have is like all the teachers have the list, and as they do it, they either get points for it, or maybe you do like a bingo card, and once they complete their self-care tasks, then they could turn it in, and then they could win, some kind of raffle. They could win water bottles or, something like that. And so just finding ways to engage the teachers, because they're the role models. So if you get them more active and healthier and happier, then it's going to reflect with the kids too. So that was kind of the big thing that I saw, is that once you really start this coordinated effort, it affects everyone. It's not just for the students, it's for everyone. And again, I know I'm getting way off your question, but that can work at every single level. So when you get that team and you set your goals and you see them through, that can be amazing too. And I want to say this too. So we used to do, on any kind of break, I would print out these logs, these like physical activity logs. So if we were going to be out of school for 2 weeks, I would have a log and they could log their activity level for the 2 weeks. I would print out 600 of those because I had 600 students. And can I tell you that only about 10 came back on average every time I did this. And, I could feel like, oh man, this is a waste. This is a waste of paper. This is a waste of time. What am I doing? But it was really neat, because when we would have the family fun nights and we would have these parents come up and they're at the school and they would tell me things like, I just want to let you know that we removed all of the WOW foods in our house, and now our family, we walk every day after dinner. That one family, that is a success. And that is worth celebrating, because you change the path of that one family, that for the rest of their, I'm losing it, maybe because it's so late, but you know what I'm saying? You impacted that whole family line. And so, all of those things are really, really important, even if sometimes it feels like just small wins. And then also there's a picture right back here of this teacher. She did her healthy commitment 2 years ago, and she just decided that she was going to stop drinking soda and she was going to start walking in the evenings. And it was incredible. She lost like 20 pounds, and we were just visiting schools and just letting them know they were doing a good job. And we were just recognizing her, and that's when she told me this story. And she tells me this story about how like it impacted her, and she starts like tearing up. And it was just a really neat moment, because when we do these efforts and we really start to change lives, that's what makes it worth it. And it works. It really does work.
Thank you, Shana. We have a comment here from Roxana. She says that she loves your energy and wants to know what motivates you to continue this important work.
Thank you. That is really sweet. I think it's the one kid, it's the one teacher. Like, that would be my why, is like seeing the difference in one person, and just have that change can be so impactful. And now that I've been teaching for a while too, I have several students who have graduated, and they'll send me messages and they're like, I remember in middle school when we used to do, and they'll just, remind me of some event that we did or some moment in the gym. And that's amazing too. That's PE teachers, anyone that gets to like just pour into others. And I feel like PE, health and wellness, I mean, the whole child program, that's what you're wanting to do. When we just get to pour into others, that's really special. And we get to affect people's lives in a different way than academics. And when we are doing those things, those of us that are in third-party organizations or PE, like when we're pouring into them, and then all of a sudden we have these safe and healthy kids, then all the rest of the whole child can happen. Then they feel challenged. Then we can bring in all the academics. So it's really nice to be at that part where you're just kind of meeting their needs, meeting them right where they are, and encouraging them to, be active and stay healthy. And I think too, can I say one more, Amy? I'm sorry. I think too, it's important that whoever your audience is, when you're talking to them, that they understand that healthy looks different for everybody. I used to tell my school when I was talking to them that you might not have that same message as everyone else. Because sometimes we start talking about health and wellness and all of a sudden people start thinking like they're talking about a scale, they're talking about this, everything has to be this way. And that's really not the case at all. I would have some teachers who were really passionate about like red dye and how this was really bad for you. And I would have other teachers that cared a lot about like Meatless Monday, and we want to push this idea. And so really empowering everyone to have a voice, because when kids are hearing all of these healthy messages, even though they're different, they're again creating that healthy environment and they're learning so much. So I think a key too is just identifying with the adults you're working with, everyone cares about some part of health, and really giving them the voice and telling them how powerful that is. We even had, and again, it was middle school, so it was appropriate. We had a teacher who was giving up smoking. And so he had just gone through some pretty serious heart issues because of his smoking. And so he was kind of sharing that with his students and kind of walking through that. So even though it had nothing to do with what are we eating and physical activity, it was still a really important message that our students are getting. So, just remind people that we all care about health. Let's just find out what we're really passionate about and then lead with that passion.
We have a comment from April. She said that she's agreed and wants to thank you for your commitment to our kids.
Thank you.
The next question we have is from Joanna. She wants to know how you see in-person PE adapting and functioning in the most efficient and safest manner for teachers and students.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an entire training on in-person PE. Some of the key points that we tell our teachers: one, they need to go outside. Like if you have the ability to go outside, that's where you need to be. Two, if you're going to be inside, then really making sure that your classes have that 6 feet, or your students have that 6 feet of distance is going to be important. We also have this tool where they can evaluate their activities and decide which risk level their activities are at. So there's some activities that are at a very low level, and that's what they should start the year with. And then as the community spread is decreasing in the area, then they can move forward through to like a little bit more risk and then the higher risk activities. We also talk a lot with our PE teachers about how to take a high risk activity and then lower that risk. So an example of that would be, we have a game called Dragon Tail, where you have a scarf that's in the waistband of your pants and everybody's like running and they're grabbing scarves and they're fleeing from each other. And so there's a lot of movement that's happening and kids are really close. So that's a very high risk activity. There is a connection between how heavy we're breathing and how close we are with transmission. So a couple of things that we could do: well, we could cut noodles in half, and so the kids could, instead of pulling a flag, they could be tagging one another, and then once those kids get tagged, they go to the re-entry zone and then they come back in. So that would be a some risk, because one, we're touching this, we have this implement, so we're still far apart. Two, you would have to disinfect that implement as we move it forward. You wouldn't be able to share them in the same classroom. But then that's how we reduced it. So we went from high risk to some risk. And now to take it to a low risk activity would be to go outside and play tag, but instead of them touching each other, they're stepping on each other's shadows and calling it shadow tag. So you can see where we still have the same kind of activity, but we're changing it from a very high risk to a low risk. Another example could be soccer. So soccer in a small-sided game would be a high risk activity, but then to make it a little bit lower, you could do soccer where you're just passing back and forth. So now we're, passing to a buddy, and then to make it even a lower risk, it's just soccer skills. So having a student with a ball in their safe spot, working with that ball handling skill, then that would be a very low risk activity. So you can see how you can kind of move your activities down that, up and down that scale. We also teach something called grids. And actually, I will pull that up so you can see it real quickly. Grids is just a way of setting up your PE space so that everyone has their own safe place that they're participating in. And that can be really important, because if there was a breakout that was happening in the school and administrators wanted to do some kind of contact tracing so that they could contact the parents, then it would be key to be able to say, okay, I know exactly who, she was playing with that this week, and be able to list off who she was with. That's going to be very important. So there's a lot of things that we can do. And also there's PE teachers all over the United States that have gone back, and they're sharing just some great ideas. But again, just staying separate, and following those protocols are going to be really, really important. And then just knowing that we can still be physically active is key too, because unfortunately we have some schools where they're just wanting to do away with it completely. And that can be really detrimental to all of us. I mean, the kids really need to have that activity. And so don't be fearful of it. There's ways that we can keep them safe, even while social distancing. Okay, so let me go to you guys and I will share. All right. So this is grids. And so the idea behind grids is just, if you notice, if we take away all those lines, the kids are just spread out, right? So we make sure that they were spread out and they're safe. They have that 6 feet apart. And then if you notice, without the lines, that they have this elbow to elbow partner. So now we can go, we start school and we're going to stay in our safe spot. And we're not going to play with anyone else and we're not going to use equipment. There's a lot of things you can do there. We could play all those rock, paper, scissors games that I showed in the other one. We could do fitness, we could do dance, we could work on personal skills. So there's a lot of things that they can do in their individual space, which would keep them safe at the beginning. Yoga is gonna be really important right there at the beginning. Then after a while, once we know our students are safe, then they start working with that partner. So now we can do partner activities, all of those kind of things. Once we know everything's safe, then we move on to having like a group or a cohort. You can also call them families if you're wanting them to feel connected. And so you can see like right here, I'm looking at just the red one so you can focus on one. The sky's kind of the limit. So now at this point, they can play any type of game and we know that they're, again, still safe away from everybody else. So if we wanted to play soccer, 2 of these students could become goalies. The other 2 could go into the playing area and they're going to fight over possession of the ball, and then they have to dribble the ball over the line with possession. Also, this square or rectangle can be as large as you need it to be, depending on the activity. So, you know, there's a lot of things they can do. So we teach all this to our PE teachers, which has been a lot of fun because I think it makes them feel better. They're like, okay, so we can still have PE. We can still do all those fun games that we love. We just need to find ways to make it as safe as possible. We also recommend too that at the beginning, they don't use any equipment because we don't want students sharing. There is a 2-part process of cleaning equipment that's going to have to happen where they're washing first with soap and water and then they're disinfecting it. And so just that process is going to take some time. So we tell them to plan to either do a different unit each class period, or they're just working with different equipment. So if I want all my students to work on throwing and catching, they're throwing and catching something different every class. And then at the end of the day, I'm able to disinfect. And those trainings, unfortunately, they're not free, but we do have a lot of trainings available to cover any of those things. So if you wanted to send anyone to the Catch website for trainings, you could do that. We have one for physical activity in the classroom, and it's called Meaningful Movement, and that is for classroom teachers to teach them how to have active classes. Then we have one for PE, and so we go over virtual, hybrid, and then in person. And then we have one for coordinated school health. So, and one thing that we really wanted to make sure we did is with the coordinated school health one, we call it whole child leadership. So if you wanted to take that training, there's the one-time fee for the training, which I think is $75. But if you get 3 people to attend, then we lower that because we're trying to encourage teams to join us. But if you attended that training, we don't make it specific to Catch curriculum, because we feel that whole child, whole child work is really important, and it's not a curriculum, it's a process. And so we teach the process during that training, and then we give you the tools that you need to create your own curriculum or to, pull from other resources and that kind of stuff. But if you're interested in those trainings, those are available.
Shana, for those who are interested in learning more about grids, can they find the activity on the parent resource website that you shared earlier?
I don't think it's available, but we can make it available pretty easily. Yeah, we'll make sure that you can find that. So it'll be available on the educator as well as the parent, and it'll just say Grid Management System. Adding that to my notes. We'll get that up.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
And then also another question is, for those who are interested, how could they bring Catch to their campus?
Yeah, I would love that. So we have a couple of things. We have something called Catch Promise. So Catch curriculum is curriculum, and then we have something called the Catch Global Foundation, and we're a nonprofit organization that works to create these whole child situations on campuses, and so we teach and lead those efforts. So we have a program called Catch Promise, and that is available to any school that has high, what am I trying to say? Free and reduced lunches. So 75% of students are in that free and reduced lunch. If you fall into that category, then you can apply to be a Catch Promise school. To be a Catch Promise school, that gives you a Catch trainer for a full year, sometimes longer. So we fund the work as the nonprofit organization. Sometimes we partner with other nonprofit organizations, and then we fund the work that comes. And so with that whole kind of bundle, you get training for whole child, you get training for PE, you get a person that comes to your school and helps you kind of get the efforts off the ground. You also get our Catch coordination kit, our nutrition lessons, and then our PE, all of our PE. We also provide money for your family fun night. So we give, I think, about $500 for family fun night, and then a $500 stipend to whoever is kind of leading the effort. One thing that has been kind of neat about this virtual world that we're finding ourselves in is that it is allowing us to work with more schools. So we used to work with just districts, and so your whole district had to be on board and ask to be a part of Catch Promise and kind of go through this process, but now we're able to work with individual schools. If you don't fall into that category, so you're not considered a Title I school, then you could purchase that whole package as well. And so I believe we're doing that at $1,500, and it's called the whole child kind of package, but none of it is in person. So it's all, and this is happening because we're in this virtual world now. So now it's done online. So you still do the virtual whole child training for your whole school. You do PE training, and then you have someone that you're connecting with throughout the year that's kind of helping guide that. It also has the curriculum pieces, so the PE, the nutrition, and the coordination kit. And then we also just created video lessons, video nutrition lessons that you'd have available to you. So that's kind of the whole picture, but then all of these pieces can be purchased separately as well. And you have some of the options that are like hard copy, and then you have some that are available online. And you can find all this at catchinfo.org. I know I'm giving you a lot of information right now, but Catch Info will help you get there. And I think I have that pulled up. I do. So let me go back to sharing. All right, and so right here, this tells a little bit about Catch Promise, who we are, who our target is, why we do what we're doing. We're actually, we had just talked to Kenya right before all of this happened. So we're finally going to get out of the United States and head over and go work with some other countries too. So we'll be heading to Kenya soon. But this is kind of that target on Catch Promise. If you're interested in trainings, any of those things, I believe I had that up as well. I might have lost it, but if you just go to Catch Info, you'll be able to find all of that information. Also, my email is shana@catch.org, and so if you wanted to just email me and kind of give me an idea of what you would like to do, what your plans are, then I can help you get into that realm too. And we haven't talked much about inclusion, but I do want to say just a little bit about that too, that my heart's in inclusion. I had I had an inclusive high school cheer team for many years, and so that's just my heart. So we are working with students who have disabilities, and we have this site as it's got to be that it's late in Texas. It's 2 hours later than there, but we have some inclusion resources available too, and these are completely free, so you can find them at catch.org/inclusion, and then you can also find them on YouTube. But that's another part of our heart that we participate in. All right, I will stop sharing. I think we're good.
Thank you, Shana, for sharing about those resources. We have also put your email down onto the chats for those who are interested in learning more about the Catch curriculum and how they can bring Catch into their schools. Also want to remind others, if you guys have any questions, to please put it on the chat. If not, then we are going to wrap up. So one last question that I have for you, Shana, is how can we empower and enable classroom teachers to integrate physical activity and reinforce healthy behaviors at home?
That is a great question. I would say model it as much as you can. So a great time to do that is whenever there's some kind of faculty meeting. So if we're all, on a Zoom call, then modeling an activity break. So getting up and say, okay, guys, we're all going to play cone reaction. So if you watch the video, cone reaction was one where I was doing head, shoulders, knees, and cone, and so when you model that, they start to say, oh, this isn't as hard as I thought. Or even modeling the true and false I was telling you about, where you're asking questions and they're just standing up for true and sitting down for false, really trying to keep it simple. I think a lot of times our classroom teachers are so worried that if they get the kids up and moving in the classroom that they will not settle down and get ready for academics. And so, just practicing that is really important. We also have some slides. I hope it's in the process guide that I shared on Whova, but it's 2 brain scans. And so there's one brain scan of students sitting down for 20 minutes. And then there's one of students who are walking for 20 minutes. Okay, good, April. I hope that means that it's there. And you can see that whenever we're sitting, that, the brain kind of shuts down, but when we're moving, the brain is activated. And so there's a lot more oxygen there, everything is firing. And so we really need to just get that in front of teachers as much as we can and let them know that, hey, we want to teach to this child. Also, 85% of students are kinesthetic learners. So if we can get them up and moving and engaged, then they're just going to learn better. So I think that there's a couple of pieces to this. There's definitely that, like the data piece and just, letting them know, hey, this is why, let's do this. And then there's the comfort level. And so as much as you can model it, once we're in person, even if you have teachers that are really comfortable with this, going into other classes and demonstrating it, that can be really helpful too. There's a list of activity breaks that Catch has, and they're just real simple little bouts of activity that you can do in the classroom. And so having PE teachers either lead those and the teachers see it, doing that here online, showing videos to the teachers, all of those things just make them more comfortable with the idea. And then some of them will kind of come around to it. Also, it's great to get the kids on your side. So if you teach the kids some of these activity breaks, let's say during your PE time or your activity time when you're working with them and you name them, hey, this is the activity break, and you teach it to them, then they'll start asking their classroom teachers for it. And so then the classroom teacher will come up to you and be like, what is hot tamale? These kids keep asking me for this game called hot tamale. And so that can be helpful too. Teach the kids the activity break so that they can ask for it. Teach and demonstrate to the teachers when you're in a kind of a setting like this, and then hopefully we'll see it. And then also a key part of all of this, idea of having a healthy environment is to reward and value those behaviors that you want to see. And just like it works with the students, it also works with the teachers. So if we want teachers to be more active, then we need to reward that behavior. So once you know that, Miss Vang is leading activities, then you want to call that out. You want to, post it online. You want to give a shout out during faculty meetings, all of those kind of things to highlight it. And then the other teachers will start coming along too, because when we do that, we normalize the behavior. So like, hey, it's normal that all these classroom teachers are teaching physical or being physically active in their classroom. And so they'll come along and participate as well. At least that's the hope. You won't get everybody involved, but you can get a lot of them.
Making sure positive reinforcement is also important in adults too, to get everyone motivated and going. Rebecca would like to say thank you for all the tips that you've given us during this live Q&A. And we would also like to thank you and everyone else who was able to join us for today's session. The Health Education Council team would like to inform everyone that you can create new discussion boards and contribute to existing discussion boards on a variety of topics. Health Education Council has created different boards with topics related to school wellness and set up meetups throughout this week and next week. Please use the discussion board and meetups to network with your fellow attendees. And I want to remind everyone that we have our meetup tonight from 5 to 6 on making mindfulness work for you, and our happy hour tomorrow from 3 to 4. Again, thank you so much, Shana, for being one of our guest speakers and joining us for the live Q&A.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. All right, Amy, thank you so much for leading us. Bye.